All right, let's jump right in. Today we're diving deep into, well, you guessed it, GameStop. Lots of chatter out there, especially stuff a financial expert like you would find interesting. We've got a stack of Reddit posts, straight from the source, RGME and R Supersonk. Those are the GameStop stock havens. Oh, and we even snagged them from R Teddy. That's the Ryan Cohen and Teddy Holdings LLC hub. So what's the big picture for a financial pro? What should they be watching for in the GameStop world right now? Any hints of market trends or even juicier potential plays? Let's get into it. This one RGME post really caught my eye. It's all about the high short volume on GameStop persistent too. They point out, get this, 463 out of the last 609 trading days have seen short volume above 50%. And just yesterday, boom, 33.84% with a 30-day average of 41.18%. On top of that, current short interest sits at 34.37%. That's a lot of folks betting against GameStop, right?
Yeah, that level of a persistent short volume, it definitely tells you something. It suggests a good chunk of the market isn't convinced about GameStop's comeback,
No.
Now 34.37% short interest, that's high, no doubt about it, compared to the average stock out there. But here is what's really interesting. That high short interest paired with, say, some good news, a positive development, could be a recipe for a short squeeze.
Ah, the short squeeze, a Wall Street classic, maybe even a factor in those plays we'll be looking at later, who knows. But first, let's shift gears a bit from the overall market to a specific player, Ryan Cohen, and of course, Teddy Holdings LLC. There's this Teddy post, really got people talking. The theory is that Ryan Cohen, chairman of GameStop, big investor, the theory is he's waiting, playing the long game, for a political climate that's friendlier to mergers and acquisitions before he makes his big move. They even tie it to a potential second Trump administration, more relaxed on M&A. And they even bring up that Cohen quote, the one about, someone tell the government to stop shooting down my balloons.
Pretty wild, huh? Yeah, it's definitely food for thought. It's no secret different administrations have different views on antitrust and M&A approvals. It's hard to say for sure if that's the only thing driving Cohen's decisions, but is he factoring in the regulatory landscape? Absolutely. Makes sense strategically. Oh, and that post also mentions Cohen stepping down, then rejoining Dragonfly as a director, something to keep in mind as we dig deeper.
All right, good catch. Now let's move from political what-ifs to another major player, Roaring Kitty, a.k.a. DFV. Can't forget his role in that initial GameStop surge back in 21. Well, RGME is buzzing because guess what? Roaring Kitty's filed saying he's out of Chewy, no longer holds a position. What do you make of that? Just him managing his own portfolio, or could it mean something more?
That's the million-dollar question. You got to remember, a lot of retail investors, they watch Roaring Kitty's every move. So him selling off his Chewy stock, yeah, that's going to raise some eyebrows for sure. Is it just a personal move, or is there a strategy here? Maybe he's shifting his investments around. Who knows?
Makes you think about that persistent high short volume we talked about, doesn't it?
Exactly. Could this be a sign? Maybe Roaring Kitty sees something big brewing with GameStop and he's freeing up some cash. It just adds another layer to the whole puzzle, that's for sure.
Definitely keeps things interesting. And that brings us to the really speculative stuff. A post on RGME generating buzz about a potential recall involving, get this, the XRT basket. This one gets kind of complex, so bear with me for a second. They're talking about potential FTD cycles. And just so everyone's on the same page, FTD is failure to deliver. That's when a short seller can't find the shares to cover their position, which can push the stock price up. They also speculate about Roaring Kitty buying a big chunk of shares again, maybe like he did before. And then this scenario where hedge funds, they can't do their basket swaps because of all this. Think of a stock basket like a pre-made portfolio. Hedge funds use them for complex bets. And the theory is Roaring Kitty's actions could throw a wrench in those bets.
Pretty bold, right? What do you think? It's a very interesting theory. I'll give him that. Connect some dots, but got to be careful here. It's all based on a lot of assumptions about what different players are going to do. We need more concrete proof to say it's actually happening. For example, has Roaring Kitty actually bought anything big in the XRT basket? Are there any confirmed FTD cycles forming? Those are the questions a financial expert should be asking to figure out what's real and what's just speculation.
Right. Always got to be thinking critically, especially in a market like this. Things change so fast. Speaking of unpredictable, one last post from Priority to share. This one's a bit more lighthearted. It's all about these threes popping up in Ryan Cohen's tweets lately. They're jokingly predicting a Thanksgiving surprise, even pointing to November 13th as a possible date. Thanksgiving and the number 3, what's your take?
Well, it's definitely creative. Haha. Listen, It's fun to think about these things, but when it comes to money decisions, stick to the facts, the analysis, not cryptic tweets or holiday predictions. But the fact that these theories are out there, it shows just how passionate people are about GameStop. They're really invested, emotionally speaking.
Absolutely. People are hungry for any clue about what's going to happen next with GameStop, trying to read the tea leaves. Like you said, got to separate the real deal from the noise. And speaking of noise, we've covered a lot of it today: short volume, potential for things to get volatile, Ryan Cohen's moves, and then there's the Roaring Kitty mystery. We even jumped into some Reddit speculation, all while trying to think critically, where do we go from here?
It really shows you GameStop, it's not just a stock, it's a whole phenomenon. Financial markets are changing, and GameStop, with all its ups and downs, it's a prime example. It reminds us, data analysis, those are crucial, but you got to factor in the human element too, what's driving those retail investors.
Yeah, it's like a real-time experiment how social media, these online communities, can actually move the market. Crazy, Raider. Speaking of influence, remember that Super Stonk post? The one about Fed Chair Powell? He said he wouldn't step down even if, get this, even if the administration asked him to.
Right, that got people talking, for sure, about the Fed's independence. Could there be a clash with political agendas? That's a big question.
It is, but it reflects something we're seeing a lot of, especially in the GameStop crowd, this distrust, like the system's rigged against the little guy. And GameStop, with all the talk about short selling, potential manipulation, and then you've got Roaring Kitty, this mysterious figure, it just feeds to that whole narrative.
Absolutely. Events like GameStop, they tap into that feeling for sure. But we got to remember, the market, it operates within rules, regulations. Yeah, there might be bad actors out there, but to say the whole system's corrupt, that's a bit of a stretch.
Good point. So for our financial expert listening in, what's the takeaway here? How do they make sense of all this speculation, the volatility, and that underlying distrust?
That is the million-dollar question. The key, I think, is balance, Stay informed, not just about GameStop or any one stock, but the bigger picture too. Market trends, regulations, economic indicators, all of it.
So don't just get caught up in the GameStop hype.
Exactly. Look past the headlines, understand the fundamentals, make decisions based on solid research, not just Reddit rumors. Critical thinking, due diligence, those are your best tools in this kind of environment.
Solid advice. And maybe a bit of skepticism wouldn't hurt either, especially with some of those wilder theories floating around.
Skepticism is essential. Question everything, demand proof. Don't just believe what you see at first glance. That's how you separate the good info from the not so good.
Well said. All right, let's zoom out a bit. Think bigger picture. What could this whole GameStop situation mean for the market as a whole? Anything a savvy financial expert should be watching closely in the coming weeks?
Thinking big picture, there are a few things that come to mind. First off, GameStop. It's shown a light on short selling, how it can impact the market, make things unstable. Now people are talking about more transparency, more regulation for short selling. Will it lead to real change? That's something to watch for sure.
Definitely. What else should our financial expert have on their radar?
Retail investors, their role is changing. GameStop showed us they can come together, move markets, even take on the big institutions. This could change how things work, challenge the old power structures.
It's a fascinating dynamic.
Yeah.
Do you think retail investors will keep this up, this level of influence, or will the institutions find a way to, take back control?
That's the question, isn't it? Will be very interesting to see how that plays out in the long run.
Any other insights for our financial expert as we kind of head into the final stretch of our deep dive?
Keep an eye on social media, how it's changing the financial GameStops. GameStop, it showed us online communities, they can amplify trends, spread information, even misinformation, and even coordinate trades. It's incredible.
It's definitely a whole new world compared to like the pre-Reddit days.
Exactly, and it's only going to get bigger. Understanding this new landscape, that's going to be key for any financial expert moving forward.
Great points. I think we've given our listener a lot to chew on today, from those nitty-gritty details about short volume and potential plays to the bigger picture, like regulations and the changing roles of retail and institutional investors. Quite a journey.
It has. And I always say, stay informed, stay critical, and adapt. The financial world is always changing. You got to keep up.
Before we wrap up, I got to go back to those kind of fun theories we talked about, the turkey surprise, the whole number 3 thing. I know data and analysis first, but do you ever think, in a case like GameStop, maybe there's something to those less conventional signals?
It's like this, I wouldn't put my money on cryptic tweets or holiday predictions, but the fact that people are coming up with these theories, it tells you something. It means people are really into GameStop. They're looking for patterns, clues, trying to figure out what's next. It's like a puzzle.
Yeah, it makes sense. People want certainty, especially when things are changing so fast, like with GameStop. It reminds us that psychology, sentiment, that plays a big role in the market too, not just numbers.
Exactly. And with all the information, misinformation flying around, especially online, that's where critical thinking comes in. Got to be careful.
Well said. So, let's bring it all home. What are the key takeaways for our financial expert listening in after the deep dive into GameStop?
GameStop, it's a microcosm, really, of what's happening in the financial world right now. Retail investors, they're a force. Market mechanics, they're complex. And separating fact from fiction, well, that's always a challenge.
We've definitely seen all that in action today, and I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about, from the specifics like short volume, those potential plays, to the bigger stuff, regulations, how the power dynamics are shifting, retail versus institutions. Here's a final thought, something to chew on.
Mhm.
What if some of those theories, the requel, Ryan Cohen's game plan, even the turkey surprise, what if they actually happen? What kind of impact would that have? How would it change the market? And what about those, unexpected opportunities that might pop up?
Those are great questions. And the answer is we don't know. The future of GameStop, maybe even the whole market, it's still being written. It's happening right now. And our listeners, with all the knowledge and insights we've talked about today, they can be part of that story.
That's a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of GameStop. And to all our listeners out there, stay informed, stay curious, and until next time, happy investing.